Welcome to Buckets, coming to you live from the Tommy John Home Studio. I am your host, Brandon Anderson, here with Jim Turvey for a little off-season fun. Some more content for you as usual here at Buckets. The NBA never sleeps. Jim, we're recording this on the day of Game 5 of a tied NBA Finals. We don't know what's going to happen yet with this season still, but we already had a blockbuster trade. You trade 4 picks. We're calling it a blockbuster trade. Desmond Bane traded to the Orlando Magic just yesterday as we were recording. There are more rumors. There's Kevin Durant rumors. We'll see where he's at by the time you listen to this. The NBA draft comes a week away. This is sort of part 2, Jim, for us today. Hopefully you've already listened to. If not, go back and listen to the podcast we did predicting what teams will make next year's conference finals. Who will be in the NBA Final Four in 2026. Here's today's version. It's similar, but it has a twist. You only needed to win 2 series to make the conference finals. We want you to win 4. We want to see you win the whole thing. So not counting this week of games, we'll see whether the Thunder or the Pacers are the champion. But going forward from there, what NBA team can win at least one NBA championship in the next 3 years? That's the topic for today. That's what we're going to get into. Jim, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, you talked about how, like, before the podcast, you asked me, like, how similar on a scale of 1 to 10 is your list here? And I said about a 4 because there are a fair amount of dynamics here. First of all, it's 1 year versus 3 years. That's notable. But the other thing is that I feel like I said floor 100 times on the previous podcast because honestly, obviously you still need a ceiling to be able to get to conference finals, but the ceiling is what we talk about when we talk about a title. But yeah, it really is. It's changing on multiple dynamics there, and 3 years sounds like a pretty short number, but 3 years in the NBA is like it's almost like dog years. Like it's 1 year contains 7 years of roster swapping and league dynamics changing and what wins and what loses and coaches. The longest tenured coach is like probably 3 years old at this point. Things change super fast in the NBA, so I think this will be a really fun exercise that is different enough from what we just did earlier on.
Yeah, I agree. When you and I were texting about this, initially I threw out title in the next 5 years, and that seemed like a good amount because 5 years feels like a good chunk to think about the NBA. Settle on 3 years, and here's why. I came back to you with this text of, here's what happened 3 years ago right now, Jim. Steph Curry led the Golden State Warriors, including Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Otto Porter. You can do the math on where all those guys are. Ain't on the Warriors anymore. He led them over the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals, led by Jalen Brunson and Luka Doncic. Remember that, Mavs fans? Sorry, salt on the wounds on that one. Led them into the finals, where they upset Ime Udoka's Boston Celtics with a fierce defensive identity built around Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart, the heart of the Celtics, Robert Williams, defensive identity. A lot has changed, Jim. 3 years ago was all that stuff. The Celtics have since won a title with a completely different looking team and identity. Obviously, Luka and Brunson are elsewhere, et cetera, et cetera. Here's another way, given the what just happened in the NBA. Had you and I done this draft, this exact concept 3 years ago, I almost guarantee you the Memphis Grizzlies are a top 5 pick for one of us. They are hipster NBA 101, top 5 pick. Probably ahead of Denver, who hadn't proven yet that they could actually win in the playoffs with Jokic. Ahead of Indiana, for sure. Maybe ahead of Oklahoma City, who was more theoretical still yet. We didn't see that Shea was an MVP yet. They didn't even have Chet or J-Dub yet. They were about to draft them a week from now when we did this draft 3 years ago. A lot changes. The Grizzlies have won 2 playoff games. 2 in that 3-year window where they're supposed to win an NBA title. So again, we're going to do our best today, and we'll come back in 3 years and see how we did. Jim, you have graciously allowed me to have the number 1 pick this time. So let's get right to it. It's not a hard pick to make. Give me the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah. Easy choice. No, I don't care what happens this week, whether they win or not. Obviously, winning will make me feel a little better, but it's not going to affect my board, barring some crazy injury or something like that. I tried to do odds on this. What odds, Jim, do you think that I give? Again, this is to win at least one title in the next 3 years, not counting this. So it does not matter whether they beat the Pacers or not. What odds do you think, what percentage am I giving the Thunder win at least one in the next 3 years?
I think it's minus money. Do you have it above 50%?
I don't. I honestly, I adjusted a little bit as the series has gone on, if I'm being totally honest. So maybe I'd adjust back. I had it at almost even odds, almost exactly 50-50. I have it now a little, just really two more than anything. We talked about this on the last podcast. It's so hard. It's been since 2018 where the defending champions even made it back to the conference finals.
Yeah.
Attrition is hard, man. And this, we've seen how hard Oklahoma City plays. Two things can be true. I think the team we're watching right now in the finals, this version of the Thunder, very well might be a worse team than I'm getting all 3 years for our draft. I think we might get a better version of this Thunder team because other than Ihart and Caruso, who are important, but were free role players, they signed as free agents, they still have the 3 stars still presumably getting better each of the next 3 years. We've seen Chet and J-Dub getting better in these playoffs, getting better in each series. Shea is the MVP. Shea is just entering his prime still, should still be at least this level, or maybe still adding to his bag a little bit, adding some passing, adding some things like that. We've seen him playing some off ball. What else can he add to his game? And they still have the war chest. They have all the draft picks. They have they can still add to this team. Either probably not necessarily free agents anymore because they're going to get expensive. The Hartenstein Caruso thing is going to be a short-term solution, but they can still add some other pieces. I would price them right now. I have them 40% just based on the attrition factor, and I basically am saying, you know what? They're the favorite, all caps favorite in 2 of the 3 years. But 1 year, something's going to happen. Somebody got hurt. Something went wrong. Just 3 years is a long time for it all to be perfect. And we know how the NBA goes, even in today's era with so much parity. It's just too hard to have a dynasty year after year after year. I do wonder if the Thunder could be a new version of what we've just seen with the Celtics. Not a great year to make that count because they didn't make the conference finals. But year after year competing, could they be the Spurs? Just the high floor defensive identity, offense enough, stars enough to just be there year after year after year. I think if you put up right now at a sports book, the Thunder to win at least one title in the next 3 years, and you priced it at even odds, I think books would get just demolished with money. Yes. And it would be crazy because it's honestly not even a bad thing for them to post because they just get to keep your money for 3 years. Like even if you win your bet, don't do that bet because 3 years hold is ridiculous. But yeah, Thunder to me, number one, more than double the odds of any other team on my board.
Yeah, I talked about this on the other podcast. I have been skeptical of the Thunder at times this year, but it is fully in relation to the market. This is another draft we are doing without odds. There are no odds for these right now. As you said, books could hang it and probably get some decent money on it. But without odds in the picture, OKC is like, I have them like 2 tiers above everyone. They are really in their own category. One thing that I think helps them out is, you know, the famous Harden trade, which we don't need to get into the waters of right here, but they clearly were owners. It's a small market. It was going to be difficult for them to do, you know, the budgetary things that a Steve Ballmer could do, or some of these mega market Lakers and Knicks and Celtics and all that. But in this kind of basically a hard cap era, that only flattens the money even more and makes it more likely for a team like OKC to be able to compete over year after year after year. So really, they're in the perfect era for it. They have the depth, they have the coaching, they just have everything. They have the treasure trove of assets. You know, they're really, you can nitpick here and there with, you know, are their shooters maybe not that good? Is Caruso actually really important and maybe going to either age out or not be able to afford after this year? There's nitpicks you can do, but in comparison to every other team in the league, it's the same as the other draft where it's like, you know, you got a wart on your pinky versus, you know, warts all over your body. Like no other team is nearly at the level of OKC. I got OKC in the last draft. It only seemed fair that you get OKC in this draft. So should I move along to my first pick?
Yeah, and this is, of course, theoretical. Jim and I love the theoretical stuff, but we only do this because it has real life analysis attached to it.
Yeah.
It is setting you up for, okay, when somebody makes that big move this summer that we're trying to factor in the likelihood of, do you have the assets to make that move? Do you have the young talent to take a leap? Okay, can you grab those odds right away? Do you know how to react of where this team is heading? You can bet title just for next year. Can't bet a 3-year title window. That's theoretical. But this stuff, we do this because this sets us up how we're thinking about NBA futures. You got to study the future and kind of imagine what futures might look like. Oklahoma City's, you have to imagine very hard. We kind of already know what it is. For a lot of the teams we're going to get to, you got to do some imagining, but not till a little further down our draft. Jim, give us your first pick of the draft and second overall.
I'm curious how quickly we diverge because we talked about our boards. I think were mostly pretty similar for the last time we did this, but a little bit different here and there. This I think could kind of go off the rails quickly. And I think I mentioned to you before we started recording that it's kind of got this weird dichotomy where you can almost squint and make the case for a lot of these teams, and that on the one hand should be like, oh, like that's great for owners. On the other hand, if all these teams are able to squint and look and see a title in their future, suddenly you're like, oh, I came in 15th on Jim and Brandon's big board, and I'm like, I think I'm a favorite next year. Like that, it gets really, really fuzzy really quick. So what I'm going to do is take the team that I'm bummed that I missed out on last time, the player that I'm bummed I missed out on last time. I'm taking the Nuggets. It seems a little bit crazy on the surface. I wonder where they were on your board, but Jokic with like a bunch of kind of injured bums took this eventual champion likely to 7 games. They've got a new GM who's coming in. They failed draft pick after draft pick. If they just hit a couple of these with even vaguely interesting pieces, they don't have to they don't have to be Memphis level draft Knicks. They just have to get some pieces in there. Now, Jamal Murray, if he's just fully shot, that this slips a little bit because you don't need a big three, and you might not even need, a mega star. You need some depth. You need some pieces here and there. But having Jokic is the place you want to start. And he does not seem like he's getting antsy. They keep winning enough and being in contention enough that I think he'll be here for the next 3 years. There's so many unknowns. You talked about like the way you just laid out, that championship 3 years ago. I want the best player in the league and the player who I think his game. Like, what about Jokic's game is going to age poorly in the next 3 years? Nothing. He will be the best player likely in the league in 3 years. There's one other guy who maybe has contention. I wonder if he is your pick here next. But in fact, I actually had the other team ahead of Denver. But in the moment, I had Denver 3. I want Jokic. I want him on one of these 2 drafts. So I'll take Denver 3rd. I'll take Denver with my first pick, 2nd overall. Where were they on your board?
So I have Denver 7th on my board, but I don't think I would have taken them 7th because I have a number 1 Oklahoma City, number 2 in a tier by themselves. We'll talk about them in a second. And then I had a 3 to 7 tier. So by my numbers, Denver's last in that next tier down. But I was looking, I was like, would I really take them over team 6? No. Team 5? No. Team 4? Still probably no. I think I'd still just rather have Nikola Jokic. So yeah, I understand. Hard to argue with just taking a swing at the best player in the world. And like you said, centers don't age well, but Nikola Jokic is hardly a center. And like the dude it looks like he could be doing what he's doing at the Y for like the next 3-4 decades whenever it feels like it. Unless he decides to just like flee back to Europe and like hang out with horses or something like that. Always a possibility.
I'll say though, I think that, I mean, I know you're joking, obviously. I think that narrative is taking hold. Like that dude is like one of the most competitive humans. Yeah, I think he will be in the league for a long time and winning for a very long time.
I agree. All right. My second pick, again, this team, this is a clear pick to me on my board, though it very much surprised me. This is a team that I did not get them in our previous draft. Go back and listen to that one if you haven't yet. I think we're going to have some teams we talk a little less on here that we've already said more about there. You wanted me to kind of get stuck taking this team.
Yeah.
I waited. The Boston Celtics are my pick here. The 3rd pick overall. They're my 2nd pick on the board. They're the only team that's not the Thunder that I have at 14% or higher to win a title sometime in the next 2 years, or next 3 years. And that's with me largely not giving them much of a chance to win it this coming year. Like I'm effectively I have it 3% for this year, and even that might be a little high. It's just that I still have a lot of confidence in 28-year-old and 29-year-old Jason Tatum after the Achilles. I have confidence in Boston rehabbing him, not rushing him. I don't expect him to play at all next year. I'm not really counting on that at all here. But him coming back, and then confidence not even really in the roster, just in Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla making this the right roster around Tatum. I don't mind Derek White, age 31 to 33 in this window if they keep him. I don't mind if they trade him because I'm at the stage of Celtics dumb where I just assume whatever they do is going to go very well for them. Whatever move they decide they want to make, is Al Horford, I don't get him for this because he's not going to matter next year and he's got to be retired after that. Drew Holiday, age 36, 37, probably not going to be here. I don't really care. They'll find a different Drew Holiday. They already did that. They'll find a different Porzingis, or they'll magically make Porzingis healthy. I don't know what it is. And yes, I haven't spoken the words Jaylen Brown, because we all know how I think about that. I'm not even that high on him. So it's not even like, yes, Tatum and Brown for 3 years, that's the title. That's not even how I'm seeing this. It's just Tatum and the Celtics and what they do. I still have them something like 8 to 10% champions each of the next 2 years after next season. And so just kind of factoring all of that in is just it's Celtics culture and what they're doing and that they are back at the poker table in the finals year after year. And even though I don't think they'll do it next year, I still just have them well ahead of the field. And I did not expect to have that outcome coming into this exercise.
Yeah, I had them fourth on my board. And for a lot of the same reasons you said, the front office to me is like the biggest swing factor here in positively in their favor. The biggest skepticism, I mean, I just have always been a little bit more skeptical of Boston than the market, but there's no market here. So we don't really have to stress that as much. But I think I still am lower on Boston than you are a little bit. Like I think that tracks as to how we've approached them the last couple seasons. But the front office is incredible. The worries have to be, do they use this as a reset? But we've seen Boston reset. It doesn't take 3 seasons. It takes like a year, if that, where they're still in the playoffs and learning all the pieces they want for the next title team. So I very much had them near the top of my board. I just had them a tiny bit lower. I think it's good that I got Boston in one draft, you got them in the other. I got Denver in one, you got the other. OKC. Yeah. I think this is going to be the first team that we repeat. No, I think even this is a swap because I think you got this team.
But I just want to add one other comment on Boston is, to me at least, 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, even as you listen to this, when Boston got eliminated and JT tore his Achilles, I felt in the moment in real time, I was like, end of the era. When the Celtics run is over, man, that was it. And I did not, if you had made me do this draft right then, in the moment, that evening, the Celtics are like, probably, I don't know, 10th or 12th or something. Like, I'm just like totally writing them off. And here we are, they are clear number 2 on my board. The Celtics era is not over. It is a blip. It's a big blip for a year. And I guess this year also is just finishing because they didn't make the conference finals. But I think both of us agreeing that this team is going nowhere, just maybe taking a year to restock the shelves a little bit. To me, that's one of the biggest takeaways from this exercise. So I just want to make sure we kind of sat with that for a minute. But back to you for pick number 4 here.
Yeah, 100%. Going nowhere in a positive sense for Boston. Correct. And I'm going to go to a team that I hope is going somewhere because right now they didn't even make the playoffs this year, but I'm going to try and shoot the moon. I'm doing it. I got the Spurs. I actually had them second on my board. Listen, 3 years, things change so fast. I want the 2 best players in 3 years. And I think the 2 best players in the league are going to be Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. Now, of course, that's 3 years from now. There's the build to get there is not just a zoom and we're there. It will build over time. But this is a front office that, over time is basically Boston West. They have proven themselves capable of handing, from dynasty to dynasty. They really have done great stuff. Obviously, Pop is going to be less involved as he goes through health struggles, which is terrible to see, and we hope the best for him. But he's got his tree there, and there's incredibly talented, folks in that front office. And really, it's Wemby. The bet's on Wemby here. You can say that they'll be an attractive place for a start if that's because of Wemby. You can say that, the coaching will be strong. Coaching looks great when you're coaching Wemby. I think the biggest fear here is they haven't even made the postseason yet. So it's kind of ridiculous to take them this high. Based on your reaction, I probably could have waited a few rounds to get them. But I want Wemby. I'm all in on Wemby. There's certain players I pick my spots and I go all in on. And listen, has it been perfect? No, I was on Embiid Island for a long time, and that has not panned out for sure. But the approach from Wemby, I think the modern sports science and he is at the cutting edge of it, both mentally and physically. I really like his approach to everything I see. Is just he is here for the long haul. I don't think that he's going to be one of these 7'4" guys who gets injured in the career is what could have been. He really seems to have all of the right approaches in every asset of the game. It's kind of ridiculous to take a team that hasn't won a playoff game together, but we led into this podcast episode talking about how much changes in 3 years. It's very feasible for me to think about 3 years from now, seeing like Wemby gets his first ring. And the other thing is, a lot of these teams below it, there just wasn't that much intrigue to me, to be honest. I think there was kind of a big top tier, and then the rest of the teams are like, yeah, I could see them winning. Yeah, I could see that player breaking out. But I want Wemby. I think he's going to be the best player in the league, or right there with Jokic in 3 years. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Almost certainly am, but I want the Spurs.
That's interesting. Yeah, you said with your last pick that you wanted one of the two players that could be the best in the world. And I was like, who's he talking about with Jokic? And I had an idea in mind, but I don't know why I didn't think about Wemby. I should have had Wemby at least in mind for the conversation. It's not who I was thinking about. So I ranked for this exercise. I ranked everybody. But for this draft in particular, and we're going to probably go like 15, 20-ish picks. We'll kind of play it by ear with the time. I have 18 teams ranked. And then effectively after that, lots of like 1s and 0 percentages. Out of 18 teams, guess where I have the Spurs ranked on my list?
Wow. If you're asking the question, I feel like it has to be in the teens. Is it like 14?
It's 17. They're second to last on my list.
Wow.
So here's the counter argument. I think that you are making a brilliant pick when we do this podcast 3 years from now. I think I think you're a full cycle too early. Yeah. I think you think you're like a year early or maybe 2 years early, but I think we're a full podcast cycle too early. And maybe that's me. I was the Wemby Spurs guy. I went all in this season, not on title stuff, just on making the playoffs, winning a division, regular season stuff. I'm not even. I don't disagree. I still love Wemby. I like Stephon Castle. I love Dylan Harper as a prospect, assuming that that's who they'll pick with the number 2 pick in the draft. We're like 10 days out on the draft as we record this. I love all the talent, but I am notoriously skeptical and slow on teams that have a lot of handling from young players. Wemby's going to have a lot of handle. So are Castle and Harper if they're on the team. That's a lot of young guys. Like point guards or lead handlers don't typically hit their prime or really figure it out till age 24, 25. At the end of this 3-year cycle, Castle will be 23 and Harper 21. So we're like not even quite there yet with them. Wemby 24, I don't know what his age curve is. What is alien age curve? He can do whatever, whenever. He absolutely could be the number 1 player in the world by then, or certainly in the conversation for it. De'Aaron Fox, different timeline, pretty much in his prime here. So that helps the argument, I think, for sure. And we'll see does Harper stay if they get him? Do they even draft him? Do they trade out or go for a veteran? Is this a Durant position? Kind of mixing timelines together. To me, I basically have them at 0 title odds for this coming season. To go from not playoffs to winning a title is virtually unprecedented. Certainly, at least if it wasn't like we missed because of, our team got all injured or something. I know Wemby was hurt, but to go from no playoff wins to 16 of them is too much. And then even after that, I still only could get to like 1-2% per year. I don't know anything about Mitch Johnson. I don't know that we should necessarily have confidence in what he'll bring to the team. I will say too, I think I have a little less confidence in the front office than you. I feel like I said you are maybe a cycle ahead on the podcast on this pick. I think you might be like a decade behind on the confidence in the Spurs like war room. Like I've not loved their draft picks for quite a while. For the most part, they've you get top 5 picks. You're picking Wemby and Castle and Harper, sure, great. But a lot of their other in between stuff, I haven't loved. I haven't loved their investment in like DeMar and LaMarcus Aldridge and like that version of basketball they've played for a long time, a very outdated style. Maybe that's pop. Maybe now it's a refresh and something new. This is not Celtics part 2 for me. This is a different front office that still that feels to me at times like maybe the league has passed them by a little bit. And I need to see, now that you have Wemby, the thing, can you keep with the time and build right around that? We don't know yet. I'm not ruling it out. I think over under 2.5 when you and I do this draft 3 years from now that the Spurs would get picked. It's got to be under, right?
Yeah, I would imagine. So I think you laid out a very good case. I think the counter would be how quickly things can change. So if we had done this
Yeah,
draft 3 years ago, and the Thunder were coming off a season in which they were 24-58, things can come together quick.
you're right.
But to your point, that's all backloaded in this third season. So I think I was, I this pick almost reads as draft the title winner in 3 years, not the
Right.
titles over the next 3 years. So I think that's probably where my skew
Sure.
towards that wanting to get ahead. And listen, I
Well,
always want to
and
get
not
ahead of
just
them.
not just the third year. The Thunder were the 1 seed last year. It's
Yeah.
not like they had zero equity. It just didn't work for them. But maybe the Spurs leap 2 years from now, have
Yeah.
a chance, win a series or two, and then really have the full in title push the third year still.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more correct way of looking at it. And my want to always be slightly ahead is skewing this pick and
Sure.
moving them up my board. So who do you have for your pick at
Yeah,
number
well,
5 here?
speaking of the guy that's the best in the world for the next couple of decades, how about the guy that's been the best in the world for the last couple of decades? I'll take LeBron's team and Luka's team. I'll take the Lakers with the fifth pick. I took the Lakers in the last draft right around this range. It's Luka, it's LeBron. We'll see what else, whether it's Reeves, whether they bring in a center. I don't know that I'm getting LeBron 3 more years. I don't know I'm not getting LeBron 3 more years. Like, who heaven knows what LeBron I'm getting. I think I'm getting 2 years of a top 20 NBA player who, in the playoffs, I want on my side if I am going to try to win a title. Like, his brain is not aging. His decisions
Yeah.
on the court are not aging. His passing angles, his understanding of the game, his defense, the things he does, his body is going to slowly continue to break down, less slow than anybody else we've seen. But there's so much about his game that's just eternal as long as he feels like playing in the playoffs year by year. My question for you on this pick, we just talked about, like, obviously with the Celtics, I'm giving up next year. With the Spurs, you're probably giving up the next 2 years. With my Lakers pick, which year do you think I have the best shot to win a title? Is it now, as Luka enters his prime, maybe at age 26, but I still have the best of LeBron? Or is it like the 3 years from now, when maybe LeBron's retired, but hey, it's the Lakers. We got whoever we feel. Giannis is on the team now, or whatever. Like, which Lakers year is my best year to win this bet?
Man, I can't believe this as the long-term LeBron game. I think it is in the future. I don't think that this squad as is, I had them even lower on my board. Shout out to the people who think I hate Boston. I really hate LA. So the Boston people should love me because I am a genuine Lakers hater, and especially with this roster here, I had them much lower on my board. But I think you're right that the way I bumped them up even to get to a point where I was like, I can't go any higher than this, was that like the Lakers just have things fall in their lap. They 100% could have Giannis in 3 years. And then I would be like, oh, okay, now I'm interested in the Lakers title equity because I'm very interested in Giannis title equity. But I do think that the Luka LeBron, like this roster as is, they can make tweaks around the edges. But and again, LeBron in the playoffs, his BPM was incredible. Like him and Luka were not the issue, is the stuff around them. But I do think that at some point, as much as I love LeBron, there's so much injury equity. There's so much kind of like as to win a title 4 straight series with Luka, I don't think ever being in very good shape, and LeBron, that's a lot of straight series for him to be putting on those legs at this year. I think you would see kind of the BPM drop by series. I think it's more you hope that the horseshoe up the Lakers' ass comes through and they get all the stars somehow fall to them again,
Did
and that's the path.
Do you think so? When you were saying you wanted Jokic or the other guy that could be the best player in the world, I thought Luka's maybe who you're referring to. Do you think there's a world where he could be in that conversation, or is he a tier down for you?
He'll always be in that conversation, but I think it is like the souped up Harden thing where I just don't see that type of play, especially in an NBA with it as is right now, where it's not really like 3 stars doing their thing. It's kind of these like teams that have a star who's a really good star to work around, a Jokic, a Halliburton, even a Shea to a degree, I think fits better on these modern title winning teams than a Luka. He very well may have me eat my words. He got to a finals. If you're in a finals, things can break your way. I don't really see it with Luka. I often am trying to be not the person who says, I'll believe it when I see it. I think in betting, that's the worst thing you can possibly do. With Luka, I will see it. I'll believe it when I see
Yeah.
it. So he will be that for me.
Well, and we don't know, too. Again, we don't know how the game will move over the next 3 years. And maybe stylistically, that will be a more adaptable version of a game as to say, okay, we want the star heavy ball. Maybe that's, you know, as the Thunder are competing in the finals, this would be one of the highest usage rates ever for a player, for Shea, with his game and importance to them. If they win the title, maybe teams start to veer that direction. Maybe Luka's game adapts and grows over the next 3 years. He's still only 25 right now. Like, we still have a lot of Luka career left to go too. So I think that's, again, we're imagining here. I think there's more to imagine about Luka and his style of play, where it could still go from here. Maybe that's wishful thinking. I hope there's more to imagine, because I think we're maybe a little bored of the version we're getting, even as magnificent as it is already. So, okay, top 5, Oklahoma City number 1, an obvious pick. Denver, Boston, San Antonio, and then the Lakers. We're half an hour into our 1 hour pause. We got to pick it up here. But a lot of these teams we're going to get to now, I think, are teams we've said most of our bit about already. You are up with the 6th pick.
I think this is going to be another surprising pick, but and this is funny coming from me, who is Mr. I think the Pacers can win. This is a team-centric era. In this draft, I'm going back to the best players. I'm taking Milwaukee. It really sounds like Giannis is not leaving Milwaukee. And if I can get Giannis here, Dame will be back in a year. Even if it's not Dame, I just want pieces around Giannis. I don't think you have to. It's kind of the Jokic thing, where I really don't think you need all that much around Giannis, who I think is pretty clearly the second best player in the league right now, maybe or in the top 3. Apologies. It's Shea, Jokic, and Giannis, in my opinion. And we're really sleeping on Giannis because of just the absolute depravity around him. But if somehow, and maybe this is too much faith in a Milwaukee front office, it really hasn't shown an ability to do it. If somehow he can have any sort of pieces around him, it sounds like he wants to stay in Milwaukee. Maybe this is prisoner of the moment. Maybe this is, overweighing superstars, but I want Giannis. All these other teams I'm looking at, I just am not all that intrigued by what I'm seeing. So I keep going back to these stars. Give me Jokic, give me Wemby, and give me Giannis.
Man, this is Matt Moore would be calling me out for being like, just this is generational hating. Everybody sucks. Just give me the few star players.
Yes.
I don't hate the position. Like, stars win championships, except do stars win championships based on the version of the NBA of where we're going? Although still, okay, Shea's pretty starry, Jokic is pretty starry. We may be seeing more team-centric, but we're still seeing, even depending on what you and I think of Jason Tatum and that version of the Celtics, still a pretty good star, still a pretty clear top 5 or 10, even if you're a little bit lower on him. So I did this prep about a week before the Giannis rumors started to fizzle. So I think I had a little less hope in Giannis sticking around Milwaukee. But I don't have the Bucks ranked. Like, they're not on my board as a pick. I have the Bucks 11th in the East on my draft board. Now, I think that's a little bit low. I would move them up a little bit now that it does look like Giannis will stay for now. But I think that, and I understand what I just said. I think that Giannis stays, but only for like a year still, or only until the deadline or something. Like, there's nothing here. Dame, I love the guy. He's not going to play this season, and then he's going to be coming off an Achilles tear at age 36. Like, that to me is just an awful contract now, and I kind of am just writing off that as a star player or anything close to it. The roster is barren. The cap is awful. They got no picks. Their pets' heads are falling off. They got Doc Rivers, which is another terrible thing about them. I don't care if he sticks around right now. I don't think I'm getting Giannis for the 3 years. Like, I loaded up on Giannis possibilities in the last draft, and I'm with you on, like, if I can just have the Giannis team wherever he's at, great. I think you're getting one useless year of Giannis at best, and then I think he's going to be on a different roster after that. So that's why I had him buried here.
This Milwaukee team, every flaw you just said is 100% true. They also got pacered in the first round by losing some games they very easily could have won. Like, again, the squinting thing we talked about in the last series, where Detroit lost a series where I think you probably think they were the better team against New York. New York almost beats Indiana. Like, you can squint and see how a few balls bounce a different way. and like Milwaukee's going on a run this year.
Sure.
So I've got two questions for you. If I guaranteed you Giannis was in Milwaukee at the end of 3 years, where would you have them on your board? And if I could just give you, the 31st team in the NBA, it's Giannis's team. Where would you put that team on your board? So I've got both of those. Where would those go on your
The
board?
Las Vegas, whatever they are,
Yes.
get Giannis on the expansion draft. Yeah, I think around here probably is about it. I think maybe like probably still one or yeah. I'd have one. The team I'm about to pick, I would still have above, I think, and then probably just imaginary Giannis team for 3 years.
Yeah.
I think that it's quite likely that this 3 years window is going to have Giannis on not one team.
Okay.
So that's the problem for me is whenever and whatever that is, I feel like I'm betting, and like, I think you agree. Once Giannis is not on Milwaukee anymore, this is a dead pick, and just like there's nothing to say after that.
This is like the Sixers, where like I'm shooting them like there's the floor could be that they are the worst team in the NBA for a decade. Like it can get really bad really quick here.
Right.
But I want Giannis, so
Sure.
I think I am much higher on him staying than you are. So I wanted to figure out if that was the delta, or if it was the rest.
Yeah,
of
it's not a bet against Giannis. We need to see it. We need to see him stay healthy for the long playoff run. But I think it's been not necessarily like big concerns for me on the injury front. Like it's just a little bit bad luck, and then the roster is so bad that why are you going to push it through that? So I get it. I'm going to go Cleveland with my next pick here, number 7 overall. I don't think we need to say too much more than what we said in the last podcast. I took Cleveland as my second most likely conference finalist team after the Thunder for next year. I just think that this is a very good roster that is effectively in its prime this entire 3-year window. Maybe Donovan Mitchell just edging out by the end of it, but he'll still be 31 in the last year. I get Mitchell, Mobley, Garland, Allen, probably not the entire core the whole 3 years. Probably somebody goes at some point. There's just a lot. It's a lot of bites at the apple. I don't know if I ever really will truly believe that they're going to win the title. But here's the math for me. I'm giving them basically a 4% chance to win the title 3 years in a row. And by giving them a 4% is not very high. Like I don't have to have them very high. That's not going to be that high in any given year. It's just that I think I get a pretty good bite at the apple all 3 of the years. And it gets me into this range. This actually, for me, gives me my top 4 picks on my board. I'm just going straight down my board still.
Yeah, I thought we might be a little bit different here. For me, Cleveland is like, I wanted them in the other draft because I think the floor is very high.
Yeah.
I struggle to see this team winning a title. And so I'm going to go with, and I think I was debating between 2 teams. I think this is a better for narrative. So I'll go this direction. The team that beat Cleveland this year, the team that's in the finals tied at 2-2. I think the biggest question here is, will they be worn down from 2 straight years of these playoff pushes? But if I'm being honest, I think I want Halliburton for the next 3 years as a star to win a title. I'll take Halliburton over Mitchell. Younger, I think more built for this this modern era. And I want Rick Carlisle 100x Kenny Atkinson and 10x any coach you can bring in on Cleveland. So I mean, I feel like I mentioned Rick Carlisle's name enough that I gotta he's got to start sending me checks for the amount I've gassed him up on these podcasts. But I'll go with Indiana. They're in it right now. I think it would be derelict in our duties to let them go too much further. Did you have them around here, or were you a little bit lower?
They would have been my next pick. Yeah, for a lot of the same reasons the Cleveland stuff is just like, look, by the time you listen to this, Indiana might have already won a title.
Yeah.
Like that this is the range where we're at. So yes, we should take them seriously as possible title winners. Not too much more to say. Cleveland, Indiana were a spoiler if you don't want to hear from our last pod, but they were our second and third pick in the pod for most likely conference finals. Same case as I just made for Cleveland. I think they're just going to be a team that should be in the mix of things for at least a playoff series win and threaten to win at least one more. And then who knows? We're seeing the who knows happen as we are recording this right now. Who knows? They could be the NBA champions as you listen to this podcast still. Speaking of teams that are the NBA champions still, I'm not picking one right now. I'm picking a team that's never been made to the conference finals with this core, but I'm picking them in the second straight draft right about the same spot.
Yep.
My Philadelphia 76ers. I actually like the pick here even better than the conference finals one because I get 3 chances at what I think just give me one healthy run in the 3 years. There's going to be at least 1 year that's useless. Fine. Don't care. I already did that with Boston. You did that with San Antonio. I can lose a year here. That's the stage of the draft we're at. some year, if I can get a healthy-ish version of Joel Embiid, I still think there's hope for Paul George bounce back. We've seen that in his career. Tyrese Maxey is a star and should continue to get a little bit better. They have the third pick here. That was a real gift that they got. They got some Clippers picks still. Like, I think they actually have some moves. I will bet on Daryl Morey. It's not what he once was, but Daryl's going to make some moves and keep adding to this roster. McCain was very good this year. This, to me, is my bet. This is my Spurs pick, which is there's a world where if I get healthy, I already have on the roster a top 3 player in the world if he decides to be healthy again. And if he does, I have a roster that I can win with already probably right now. We knew coming into this year it wasn't a great roster. It was a very thin roster with not much depth to it. They now have added McCain. They're adding the number 3 pick. They have a chance to continue to add to it a little bit. I like Nick Nurse still. I don't know if I'm going to get him all 3 years. We'll kind of see where this goes from here. This is just betting on 1 year. Give me one shot at a run. And will it be next year? I don't know. You can bet them for it to be next year at plus 4,500. That's too long. That's the 15th best odds. This team, I don't want any median outcomes. I don't want their over. I don't want their division odds. I don't want any of that crap. I'll take a flyer on if you happen to be healthy when the playoffs start. And look, they might just get hurt anyways in the first round. That's what the Sixers do usually. I call this the Clippers picks from the last few years. I'm a sucker for like, this is what you bet on. You bet on looking foolish by these teams very likely being awful, and you're just staring at it in your portfolio like, I lost the bet. Just cash me out at 0. Just get out of here. I don't want to see it anymore. That's what this is probably going to be. But in a world where we get the one shot at this, I think Philadelphia is a top 5 pick in the draft. So I'm just banking on trying to get a one shot at it.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I had them in tier with 2 other Eastern Conference teams, and I had a little question here. Over the next 3 years, and this is player specific, but they're the 3 key players of their teams, who is the most likely to win a title, regardless of team? Embiid, Brunson, or Cade? And rank them 1, 2, 3.
Interesting. I'm going to say Embiid number 1. I think that he is a level or levels above what either the other two even can get to when he's healthy. I think Embiid has proven to play at MVP level basketball. I don't think the other two have that in them. I'm going to put Brunson last because I don't think that the version of him is going to evolve into something other than what we've seen of him. And Cade is definitely much worse right now than Brunson, but I'd rather have the unknown upside of Cade than the certainty of what I think is a glass ceiling of a Brunson team.
I had the exact same order, and I think that would surprise a lot of people. I think a lot of people would not agree with that, and I hope Joe Dallaire is not listening at this point in the podcast. Those 3 things I'll say on that. My next pick, I'm going to a team that I drafted pretty early in the other draft as well. Timberwolves. Very curious to see if Ant has that next gear. He's shown the ability. They've been to 2 straight conference finals. They're clearly in this mix. But he has stalled out in these 2 postseasons a little bit. You and I have kind of gone back and forth on whether, I think the conditioning is a part of it. I think you probably think it's a little bit less so. It's more maybe the quality of play at that level. And I'm not even saying like I want him driving the basket every time. It just looks like he doesn't quite have the gear to press on and really put the pressure on a defense at the time. You know how you can solve that? Get another star in there. They're being rumored around with, Durant, some of these guys. They have a front office that clearly goes for it. And has made some pretty good decisions, even though ones that have been in the moment, like this is the worst trade of all time. And then like a year later, we're like, actually, I can see how that kind of vaguely worked out. So again, really high floor, going to get plenty of bites at the apple with Minnesota, but you have Ant on top of it. It's kind of, to me, it's like the pro is that you have like a superstar in Ant that I think is a little bit better than Donovan Mitchell. But the con is you have to go through the Western Conference versus Eastern Conference. So I kind of have them around that kind of Cleveland level for me.
Yeah, this is about where I have Minnesota as well. So top 10 picks, Oklahoma City number 1, Denver, Boston, San Antonio, and the Lakers round out our top 5. Milwaukee, Cleveland, Indiana, Philly, and Minnesota in our top 10. Let's do a couple more picks here and then just real quick lightning round fire through some more. I'm going to take Houston, number 11. I thought actually that's who you were just going to take when you're saying this is a team I took last time. Houston, very high floor with just a lot of paths to upside. I don't think they're anywhere near a title with the version of the team they have right now, but what can Şengün become? more importantly, what can Amon Thompson become? I think Amon Thompson has like all NBA, maybe MVP conversation potential. Maybe if I squint, there are a lot of ways to squint and see player improvement here. There's a ton of assets. They got a ton of picks. They've shown willingness to make a move. They got a lot of cap room because the young guys haven't quite hit all of their contract extensions yet. They're in every conversation for where the star is going to get traded is going to include Oklahoma City, Houston are the top two teams in every one of the conversations. And if Oklahoma City wins the title this week as we're recording, they're probably not going to make the huge move or swing because they don't need to anymore. So Houston becomes, Giannis wants out, Houston. Like whoever that person is, Jokic wants to leave, Houston. Like whoever the player is, they're going to be the team that you start there and rule them out before you find the next team. So I just like the pieces. I like the players. Udoka's been good. It's a high floor team. They're probably going to be a top seed. There's going to be 3 bites at the apple. And this is a case where I think my bites get a little juicier each year because my young guys get a little bit better. And I got 3 years to find that star. Somebody out there is coming eventually to Houston, a name or two. I hope it's a high star for this pick to pay off. But I think Houston is a nice kind of upside value pick at number 11.
I think this is the steal of the draft. If we had to set odds based on our draft pick, like the favorite +1, like down there, and Houston the 11th best odds, me the better would come in and be like, I'm betting Houston.
Yeah,
so I think that was the steal of the draft there. I've got 3 teams left I want to talk about. Okay. I'm going to do us a podcasting favor and leave you the team that I think you want to talk about, and take the 2 other, or I'll take one now and then the other as well, and hopefully we move it along. I'm going to take Dallas. I talked about them on the last podcast as well. I think that there's actually a pretty fun debate among these 2 Texas teams here. I think it's fitting they went back-to-back as well. I'm going to be vaguely intrigued by Dallas next year. Talked about it on the last podcast. Obviously, Nico Harrison really effed up that Luka trade just by not shopping him around. But the thing he did do is create a team that has this second, if people stay healthy, a pretty interesting ceiling. If you go Kyrie, Clay, Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, a really strong, deep bench. If this team is healthy, I think you don't have to bet it this second, but I'm going to be looking to bet them potentially if they have a path next year. Anthony Davis, if this was next 6 years, they drop a bunch. But 3 years is enough that I think Kyrie and Anthony Davis, that's right around the time I'm wanting to phase them out of my life, my basketball life. But in those 3 years, I think they're vaguely interesting with a GM who is going to be so motivated to win a title before LA wins one that I think he'll do, reckless things to try to get over a potential finish line. So I'll take Dallas here. I assume they weren't on your board, really.
You're correct. They're basically just not on my board. I'm just not interested in Dallas. I'm not interested in Kyrie coming off the Achilles. I'm not interested in finding out if Anthony Davis even has Achilles. I understand with Cooper Flag, but to me, Cooper Flag is a cycle too early for him to be really a big needle mover in this conversation too. It ends up on like totally disparate timelines, so I just wasn't super interested in them. I'm going to surprise myself a little bit here. I kind of thought you might take this team by now. Last draft, you took Houston and then Houston East, back-to-back picks. That's what I'm doing now. I'm going to take the Magic, number 13 here. And to me, on our last draft with conference finals odds, the Magic actually didn't move up that far for me. Partly because I was already kind of high on just like, all right, these to sort of open. They've got some talent. They can make a push. All right, well, maybe they'll have a little bit better chance in some playoff series. They moved a lot more for me in this draft, which is weird because Desmond Bane, title needle mover, doesn't seem like a thing to me. But when you're at the extremes, which we're basically at now, and you go from like under 1% to like 3% or 5 or 7%, that's a huge swing in the title picture. And for me, the Thunder moved from like, assuming that even not the Thunder, the Magic, I only still have them at like 1.5 or 2% title odds, very low. And if I do that over 3 years, I still get a shot. But if I get 1 year where I bump to like a 4 or 5%, still long, but just give me a shot, like a Cleveland sort of year or an Indiana sort of year. Right now, with the core of guys, Paolo, Franz, Suggs, Bane, I'm not even confident that we're going to see more than like 50 games of that 4 together. I think getting Bane, like the whole fallout of this trade is, oh yeah, Memphis had to trade Bane. You can't have 3 expensive stars anymore. Oh, really? How about 4? We just traded him to a team with the same new problem that they're going to have to like resolve. This is what's happening. All these teams trade all their picks for a guy, get better, but then don't win the title anyways. And they're like, shoot, we got to get rid of one of our guys now. And it's just like this weird cycle where I don't get it and I don't like it. But there's a lot of talent upside here. There's a lot of youth paths here. I think they're a team that's just going to be in the mix of things. And where the East is more open, could they be in Indiana or Cleveland one of the years? I moved them from 20th to 10th in title odds as far as this draft. And that is a huge swing. And honestly, it made me, this version of this exercise we're doing, made me like, well, I mean, heck, if you're going to move from 20th to 10th in title odds, I can hardly hate the trade. And whatever you gave up, if you went from non-factor, like 10th in title odds is not nothing over 3 years. Yeah. Like, you're a real team now that actually could do some stuff. So Orlando Magic, here we are.
It's pretty funny that I did not get them in this draft because I do think, I want to be Orlando guy. But if I'm being completely honest with myself, I do still see a ceiling on this squad. And it's partially what you just said about the roster construction. I think they have as incredibly high floor. I'm going to want to play their win total next year. If you gave me like their win total over the next 3 years, I'd be betting that. Yeah. If you said to be in the conference finals the next 3 years, I'd say, oh, they can do it twice. It is, even in this modern era with the semi-flattened stars, Halliburton is better than anyone on this Orlando team, even as I'm a pretty big Paolo guy and a pretty big Bane guy, to be honest. But I do think you still need a little bit more there, even in the Eastern Conference, even in this era. So I had them just a hair below. I had them 13th, but not too much different. I'm going to go with, for good podcasting, I'm going to transition into the team that Bane just left. I'm going to go with the Memphis Grizzlies. There is still, I think, a fair amount to be interested in here. Their 4-man group of Jaren Jackson, John Morant, Zach Edey, and Jalen Wells had the best 4-man net rating of any 4-man rating in the NBA last year with at least 300 minutes. That's a lot of minutes. 155 different 4-man lineups qualified. That is the number one lineup. Now, Bane was the 5th person on the court for a fair amount of that, but he was the one who was the least impactful. We were talking about this with Matt after in the direct outcome of the trade last night, where he was the one who, when he came off, they didn't drop off all that much. He didn't have as impactful a season. Obviously, you want to have Bane, but this is a front office that keeps showing an ability to find talent in the draft. They just keep finding guys here and there. I think that they can rebuild this on the fly. When we did our playoff Delta rankings originally, I was surprised at how well Ja Morant has played in the postseason. It kind of told a different story than I had been telling myself. I think that this team, again, it was a team I was betting to win the title 6 months ago during this regular season. Now they've traded they had a disastrous end of the season. They fired Taylor Jenkins, which I don't like. We'll have to see how, where things go from there. There's definitely question marks, but we're at the point in the draft that I'm fine taking a team with question marks that I think does have a lot of these teams. I like Orlando. I really struggle to see winning a title. Memphis, I could see winning a title. So I'll pick them with my next draft pick.
Yeah, I ended up feeling like I didn't drop Memphis as far as I might have thought of. And I think to me, the key here is Ja Morant, because if Ja, I don't know that I believe superstar Ja Morant is still in there or ever will be again. With the injuries that we've seen, he's been great in the playoffs, but it's because we haven't really seen him have to do it for a few years since the big injury, since the suspension, since all the stuff. It just feels a little Derrick Rose to me. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to get that Ja Morant. If we do get it, I don't know that I really need Desmond Bane next to him. I don't know that I mind KCP being the guy next to him instead, because superstar Ja matters more to me. And if we're getting that version, I don't need as much Bane anymore. And I might actually even in some situations prefer the role player and the stuff KCP adds to the team, especially since you can add some other stuff around next to it. So to me, Bane's really good. It's not even an anti-Bane situation. It's just this team, to get to the level you need for a title, it's John and Jaren that needed to get there. Bane was going to just always be one of the guys that was going to be important for what they were doing. But you can find other versions of Bane. I think KCP is an answer to that. I don't really believe in John and Jaren together doing the thing, but I think in this mix, they definitely make sense. They're one of my next teams as well. I'm going to take the Warriors. Not a lot to say. Kind of my Sixers pick East, West, which hurts my own feelings a little bit, calling the Warriors the Sixers. But I'm wearing the Steph Curry shirt. Give me one chance. In 3 years, give me one shot we said in the last podcast, it's got to be Curry, Butler, Draymond, all three together. Butler still is very good. I know he disappointed this year without Steph. Give me Butler with Steph, and give me Draymond. Give me those three, one shot. I have their odds getting worse and worse each year. It's got to be that way. But if I get one healthy shot at a run, there's still a lot of upside for these guys playing together. We probably won't even get one more healthy run from them. But just given this point of the draft, the upside of what I know Steph can be in particular, and Butler as a second banana, I was really intrigued by that. He looked quite good in that role. So give me the Warriors just a shot at a possible run.
That's who I kept setting you up for. I kept thinking you were going to take the Warriors, and they were pretty high on my list, and I kind of jumped around to do some good this team connects to this team, but I'm with you on being interested. I think there's a pretty big drop off now. Is this are we at 10 picks? Is this a good time to start a whip around?
Yeah, so we're 15 picks. So picks 11 to 15 there. Houston, Dallas, Orlando, Memphis, and the Warriors. Yeah, to me, that's the end of a tier for me as well. You've taken a couple teams below the tier for me here, and I probably I to you as well. But yeah, like my next teams on my list, we'll just kind of whip around here and wrap up. Like I had teams like Brooklyn, Toronto as just sort of like blank canvas teams of like, well, what can you become over these 3 years? You got some players, you got some pieces. I can imagine what you might become, but you're dead this year. You're not getting there just yet. Teams like that, teams like the Clippers, I guess. I'd never want to draft Clippers, but maybe Kawhi, Harden, maybe Durant ends up there. To me, the team that sticks out in this tier that people listening and be like, what? How is this team still not taken? The New York Knicks have not been selected, Jim, in the top half of the board here. Where are they for you?
They were 15, so I would have gotten them eventually. But we talked about in the last podcast, we're both very low on them. They're the favorites to make the conference finals in the East. You and I were like, this is what provides the value if you're betting it right now, because that is, for neither of us, is that the top team to be in the conference finals for the East next year. We'll see how the coaching thing goes. We're recording this. They still don't have a coach. It seems like they kind of biffed it. I don't know. Maybe they'll spin it as we didn't biff it, but it kind of seems like they did. I do think that there is a path to doing it, especially because it's a very aggressive front office. They could, get some pieces in there, and it's got a little bit of the Lakers thing where, if Giannis wants to go to New York, then suddenly he's a Knick, and that happened. But I don't see a whole lot of championship equity in the next 3 years for New York.
Yeah, they're 15th for me as well. I think in a fairer world, they probably should have been in our 15 draft picks.
Yeah,
but just
probably.
Only barely at the end, and it's better content to leave them out anyways. Those are really the only teams I had even kind of things I needed to say about. Any other teams on your radar to talk about here?
I'd like to give a shout to Detroit. I think Detroit's pretty interesting. And with Cade, I think Cade really is the type of player who can be at the level that could get to a finals in this window. Atlanta and Portland are kind of the two teams that I'm going to hipstery try to kind of shout out. I wanted to, Zach Lowe keeps talking about the Hawks enough that I'm like, that alone is like, there's something there. If this very smart person keeps being like, there's an interesting core that can be built around and swapped out. And then Portland is kind of, I mentioned them on the last podcast. I'm be trying to bet them next year. I don't think they win a championship in the next 3 years, but do I think they start to get pretty interesting? I think they do. I think they've got some talent there. Let's do the thing that we did last podcast and say who were your last one, or if it's, a tier. I had three in the just fully nope for me, but I had a distinct final one I think was fitting as well.
Yeah, let me look here. How many zeros do I have? So I have 2 zeros in the West. Again, I have Portland as a zero. I share your optimism in Portland, just not as much. I think that they, again, could I see them getting better? Could I see them by the end of this 3 years making a conference finals? I think I could talk myself into an odds of that. 4 series wins for this roster is just too far for me. I have one other West team that I have at effectively 0% or close to it. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 East teams. I did have Atlanta as a 0%. That's probably not fair. They're probably like a 1%, which does matter. One's not zero. I have Charlotte, Washington, and Chicago as just 0%ers. Washington maybe should be like a 0.5% or something. They got a lot of young talent there to at least have paths to get out of this. But they're even if to me, their 3-year arc is like where Detroit got to this year, or maybe that's like year 2. It's too far to get all the way to a title. LaMelo and whatever's happening there, I didn't see it. Chicago, no. Phoenix is, to me, Phoenix might be last, honestly, to me, or at least certainly in the West, they're my last team. I just think we know that that's not great and that Durant's probably gone by the time you listen to this. And I think Booker will be gone by the time that we listen back to this on the end of the 3-year period. I think it's going to get real dark in Phoenix, where the West is going to stay competitive, and it's ugly. They got some rough cap, and they've traded their picks, and I don't see any path to anything meaningful there.
Yeah, I don't hate that. The only thing with Phoenix that I feel like because they don't have any picks, they have more tendency to try to go for things, but they might start to try and get those picks back and just fully tank. I had Washington above Charlotte, and even I had them above Toronto too. And I know Matt's going to be all over the Washington next year, so I wanted to shout him out briefly. I had the same two teams bottom of mine again. I had Chicago with you, and I had Sacramento. Sacramento for me is the Phoenix equivalent of I just don't see a path. What thing would Sacramento have to do to get to a place where they could win 4 straight series? I just don't see it happening. I think Chicago should take the crown. They were 29th for me, 30th for you, 30th for you in the other podcast. Yeah. I think 28th for me over there. I think Chicago can be crowned the full losers of these 2 podcasts.
Yeah, congratulations to my Bulls. Yeah, for Sacramento, I have in my notes technically like 1% title, but no. So yeah, I don't really have any arguments against that. We haven't really said anything about, we're just past the hour, so we'll just wrap up a couple of these other teams. We didn't say anything about Utah. Utah's sort of that like blank canvasy thing. We talked about some teams. Larry Markkinen, still prime age for him. Kessler, they got the number 5 pick here. They got a lot of other picks. They got a juicy cap situation. To me, it's a bridge too far to go title. They're kind of in that Portlandish range to me of like, yeah, okay, I could see you like being interesting and making conference finals run, but 4 series is a little too far. Did Utah catch your attention at all here?
Who's the Raptors player? Bruno Calabuco or whatever, who was 3 years away. Yeah, 3 years away from being 3 years away. That's Utah forever. They're just going to keep kicking their can down the road, be like, oh, what a smart team. Look at all the assets they're collecting. Meanwhile, they're going to have a 300 winning percentage for the next decade or something. Yeah. So I'm fine arriving late to that if somehow they finally pull the trigger and be a serious basketball team.
So I'm just noticing in my rankings, I have Utah. I don't disagree with any of that. I have Utah immediately behind the Spurs in my rankings for this exercise. So I don't know how that happened. How about the Pelicans? Zion, age 25, 26, 27. Trey Murphy, same exact ages. Herb Jones in his prime. Hopefully DeJounte comes back with something post-Achilles. I think CJ is not really in this exercise. They're kind of capped out. They got some picks. They got some flexibility. There's still the Zion upside. We drafted a lot of the teams based on like, just give me the star.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the Pelicans be like at least in our top 20? Like, are they at least high among the teams we didn't choose?
They were 21st for me, but to me, them and Charlotte, and maybe you could say even a couple other teams, I do think in this exercise kind of weighed front office. Like I think I do it more in baseball. With baseball, I really kind of like will bet teams that I believe in their front offices, but there's clearly just not good stuff going on in New Orleans and Charlotte. Like they can pick good players and they kind of just poison them. Like Trey Murphy is going to be so fun when he leaves New Orleans, whenever that may be. I'm fine missing the wave on that. I talked in the last podcast being vaguely intrigued at the number on New Orleans because they are a team that won 49 games last season. Like there is talent there, but there's just so much negative aura, whatever you want to call it, kind of around these teams that the front offices make consistently poor decisions. They don't seem to have very good, injury ability to handle injuries, good medical staffs, or, I don't want to shit on the medical staff. Whatever is going on there, those are 2 teams that the energy and stuff is just consistently they underperform and get talent and do nothing with it.
Yeah, and I think too, even just the very nature of being West teams instead of East probably weighs in a little bit of just it limits the upside of like. Again, the Thunder are going to exist. Like there are other teams, there are other superstars out here that are going to exist. So that even when you get the run, again, similar to like the Portland thing, where it's like, okay, but you still have to do it in this possible path. And it's hard to get there. As far as I can tell, I think we have talked about every team in the NBA except for one. And I'm going to be a hero and just leave that team out there and not even mention them at all because that's how I feel about them. All right, our top 15 picks. Oklahoma City, most likely team to win at least one title in the next 3 years. By the way, I have the Thunder. I think I had them 9 or 10% to win multiple titles in the next 3 years. And they might be a champion already as you listen to this podcast from this summer as well. Number 2, Denver, Boston at 3, San Antonio 4, Lakers 5. In our top 10, rounding it out, is Milwaukee, Cleveland, Indiana, Philadelphia, and Minnesota. And then 11 to 15, Houston, Dallas, Orlando, Memphis, and the Warriors. The Knicks, somewhere in the bottom half of our draft, undrafted, left to the dregs of the NBA for title hopes in the next 3 years.
If we had Joe on the podcast, how early would he have taken them? Top 5?
He would have just taken them every time he was up. He would just keep picking the Knicks every single pick, just buy more Knicks stock. So he can have it all. He can have all the Knicks stock.
For him, in all fairness.
What's that?
It's worked pretty well the last 2 seasons for him, in all fairness.
It has. Joe and I are in a little NBA contest where we like draft players and you get, stuff for their points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals. And Joe comes out firing every year and just like loads up on Knicks and gets made fun of the entire draft. And Joe is our champion 2 years running in our little 8-person draft as well. So, Joe would say, go ahead and keep doubting. I'll keep cashing my Knicks stock every year, I guess. That is going to wrap it up for Buckets today from the Tommy John Home Studio. Hope you enjoyed this one. As we spoiled everything about the next 3 years, every team that's going to win the championship now, that's it. Nice and easy. Joke's going to be on us, Jim, when it's just Thunder won 3 in a row. And it's like, why did we waste our time on the podcast? The Thunder just crushed everyone for 3 years.
Or when bam, some surprise team comes out of nowhere and wins a title in the next 3 years.
Yeah, well done. I considered that version as well. So we'll leave it there. That's Buckets for today. Thanks to David Payne for getting this goofy podcast up from us. Again, as always, we had fun. I think it's actionable. I think there are real things here and always takeaways to come out of this. So, we even gave you a few bets along the way there. I think I'm going to have to put one of those Philadelphia tickets into my app and stare at that for the next, 12 months as I hate myself and have to re-listen to why in the world I ever decided this team had some potential upside. So, yeah, NBA Finals wrapping up, perhaps wrapped up as you listen to this. NBA Draft is coming. NBA offseason is here. Trades are coming. Our rankings will already be shifting and changing. Don't worry, we won't do the entire draft again 2 weeks from now. But this is a good setup of just kind of where we think the league is heading in the next 3 years. Hit us in the comments or on Twitter with some of your thoughts. Who do we take too high? Who do we leave too low? What team did we make another terrible pun about leaving out entirely, et cetera, et cetera. And that's it for today. Thanks. We'll see you next time. Let's get buckets.